Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Trust. Grant Blackwood tugged at his tie, loosening it after another 14-hour day at Meridian Architecture, the firm he'd built from nothing over 20 years. At 45, he had crafted a life that once seemed improbable for a kid from South Boston who grew up watching his single mother work 3 jobs. The elegant brownstone in Cambridge's prestigious Avon Hill neighborhood represented everything he'd achieved: security, stability, status. As he pulled into the driveway, Grant smiled at the thought of seeing his twins, Zoe and Noah, now 17 and preparing for college next year. His chest swelled with pride at how bright they were, Zoe with her passion for biochemistry and Noah with his talent for computational mathematics. Unlike Grant, who had worked construction during the day and attended night classes for his architecture degree, his children would have an easier path. Veronica Blackwood, his wife of 19 years, had been instrumental in creating this life. They met when Grant was designing his first commercial project, a boutique hotel where Veronica worked as the marketing director. Her sharp wit, ambition, and sophisticated background, Dartmouth-educated with connections throughout Boston's elite circles, had opened doors Grant never knew existed. Their marriage hadn't been perfect, especially in the past few years. Veronica had grown increasingly distant, absorbed in her role as chief marketing officer at Luminary Hotels, a rapidly expanding luxury chain. Their conversations had become transactional, revolving around schedules and household management rather than dreams or desires. Grant had attributed it to midlife stress and tried to be understanding, hoping the phase would pass. "Dad," Noah called from the kitchen as Grant entered. "Can you help me with this calculus problem? Mom's not home yet. Some work emergency." Grant sighed, placing his briefcase down. Again, that's the 3rd emergency this month. He glanced at his watch. 9:45 p.m. "Did she say what it was this time?" "Something about the Monaco property launch," Zoe answered, looking up from her chemistry textbook. "She said she might need to fly out there tomorrow." She sounded really stressed. Grant nodded, suppressing his frustration. Veronica's international travel had increased significantly over the past year, coinciding with Luminary's European expansion. While he admired her professional success, he couldn't help feeling that their family had dropped to the bottom of her priority list. "Let me change, and I'll help you with calculus," Grant told Noah, squeezing his son's shoulder. Later that night, after the twins had gone to bed, Grant called Veronica. Her voice was tight, clipped. "Grant, I'm in the middle of a crisis. The Monaco property has issues with local regulations, and I need to be there immediately. I'll be gone for about a week." "A week?" "Veronica, the twins have college visits scheduled this weekend. We were supposed to tour Boston College together." "You can handle it," she replied dismissively. "They understand how important this job is." After reluctantly agreeing to manage the college visits alone, Grant asked, "Do you need me to transfer money for the trip? International expenses can add up." There was a pause. "Actually, I already transferred funds from our joint account. The company will reimburse me later." "How much did you take?" Another pause. "I needed $25,000 for the emergency. Hotel accommodations for the team, local legal consultants, regulatory fees. It all adds up. But don't worry, it'll be reimbursed." Grant frowned. That seemed excessive, even for an emergency business trip. "That's a lot of money, Veronica. Which account did you pull from?" "I used the Meridian Capital account. It had the most liquid cash available." Grant's blood ran cold. The Meridian Capital account wasn't their joint savings. It was the college fund he'd been building for the twins since they were born. While he and Veronica had joint access, they had always treated it as sacred, untouchable except for educational expenses. "Veronica, that's the kids' college money," he said, his voice low and controlled despite the rage building inside him. "Don't be dramatic, Grant. It's just a temporary loan. The reimbursement will go right back in, plus I'll add interest. We have other accounts. Those don't have enough liquid cash," she snapped. "Look, I've got to go. My flight leaves in 2 hours. I'll call when I land in Monaco." After she hung up, Grant sat in the dark kitchen, staring at his phone. Something felt wrong, terribly wrong. In 19 years of marriage, Veronica had never made such a significant financial decision without consulting him first, especially not involving the children's future. Opening his laptop, Grant accessed their banking records. The transfer had indeed gone through, $25,000 from the Meridian Capital account to Veronica's personal account. But there was another transfer he hadn't known about. An additional $65,000 moved 3 days prior. In total, Veronica had withdrawn $90,000, nearly half of what they'd saved for the twins' education. His architect's mind, trained to see patterns and inconsistencies, wouldn't let this go. This wasn't just unusual, it was suspicious. Grant opened another browser window and logged into their credit card accounts. Over the past 6 months, there had been a steady increase in luxury purchases. Designer clothing, high-end jewelry, spa treatments. All on days Veronica claimed to be working late. Grant rubbed his temples, a sick feeling growing in his stomach. He trusted her completely, had built a life with her based on shared goals and values. Now, he wasn't sure he knew her at all. His phone buzzed with a text from Wyatt Donovan, his oldest friend and business partner. "You see this? Isn't Veronica in Monaco for Luminary? Heard their team is having problems with the property." Attached was an Instagram post from Bradley Kent, Luminary's new director of European development. A handsome, polished man in his mid-30s whom Veronica had personally recruited and mentioned frequently in recent months. The photo showed a stunning yacht in Monaco harbor with a caption, "When work feels like pleasure. #blessed #Monaco life." Grant stared at the image, his world beginning to fracture around him. There was no business crisis. There never had been. Chapter 2. Revelations and Betrayal. The next morning, Grant maintained a facade of normalcy, preparing breakfast for the twins and discussing their college visits as if his entire world hadn't just been upended. After they left for school, he called his office and told Wyatt he needed a personal day, the first he'd taken in over 3 years. "Everything okay?" Wyatt asked, concerned. "Not sure yet," Grant replied. "I need to figure some things out." Once alone, Grant began investigation. First, he called Luminary Hotel's corporate office, claiming to be confirming details for an urgent package delivery to the Monaco team. "I need to make sure it reaches Director Kent and his team," Grant said pleasantly. "Oh, Mr. Kent isn't in Monaco with a team," the receptionist replied. "He's there for the International Luxury Property Showcase. Just him and Mrs. Blackwood from our executive team." Grant thanked her and hung up, his suspicions confirmed. Next, he hired a private investigator, Carson Reed, a former client whose office building Grant had designed years ago. Reed specialized in high-net-worth divorce cases and agreed to take on the investigation immediately. "I need concrete evidence of what's happening in Monaco," Grant explained. "And I need to understand how long this has been going on." While Reed began his work, Grant examined their finances more thoroughly. The pattern was clear. Over the past 8 months, Veronica had systematically moved small amounts from various accounts to her personal holdings. Never enough to trigger immediate concern, but significant in total. Beyond the $90,000 from the college fund, she had diverted another $45,000 from their joint savings and retirement accounts. As he pieced together the financial trail, Grant realized he'd missed the warning signs. Veronica's sudden interest in handling their investments alone. Her insistence on separate personal accounts for professional simplicity. Her dismissive attitude when he questioned certain expenses. By evening, Reed called with preliminary findings. "It wasn't hard to find them," the investigator said grimly. "They're not being discreet. Your wife and Kent are staying at the Hotel de Paris in the Princess Grace suite. They've been photographed at several events together, behaving intimately." "How long has this been going on?" Grant asked, his voice hollow. "Based on my initial investigation, at least 7 months. They've taken 3 other business trips together: Paris, Santorini, and Lake Como." Reed sent over several photos. Veronica and Bradley on a yacht, champagne glasses in hand. The pair entering their hotel, his hand possessively on the small of her back. The two of them dancing closely at what appeared to be an exclusive club. Grant saved the images to a secure folder, then poured himself a rare double scotch, hands shaking. The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was the calculated deception, the theft from their children's future, and the utter disregard for the life they'd built together. His phone rang. "Veronica, how's Monaco?" he asked, his voice perfectly composed. "Exhausting," she sighed dramatically. "Back-to-back meetings with regulatory officials. I haven't even seen the sun." The lies slid so easily from her that Grant felt physically ill. "That's too bad. I saw some beautiful weather reports for Monaco. Perfect yachting conditions, apparently." There was a telling pause. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing important. How's Bradley Kent doing?" "Successfully handling the regulatory crisis." Another longer pause. "He's fine. Working hard." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. You've mentioned him quite a bit lately. Thought I'd ask about your protege." "Grant, is something wrong? You sound strange." "Everything's fine here," he replied, letting ice creep into his tone. "The kids miss you. They're worried about their college funds, though. Zoe was checking the account balances this morning." This was a lie. He hadn't told the twins anything, but the sharp intake of breath on the other end confirmed Veronica knew exactly what he was implying. "I told you, that's temporary," she said, her voice noticeably higher. "Everything will be replaced next week. I need to go. We have a dinner meeting with the mayor's office." "Enjoy your dinner," Grant said. "And Veronica? The Princess Grace Suite has a beautiful view, I've heard. You should try to enjoy it while you're there." He hung up before she could respond, then blocked her number. Whatever came next, he needed time to think without her manipulations and lies. 3 days passed with no contact from Veronica. Grant maintained normalcy for the twins, taking them on their scheduled college visits and deflecting questions about their mother's absence. Privately, he met with Reed to review the mounting evidence and consulted discreetly with Diana Morello, a formidable divorce attorney known for representing high-profile clients. "Based on what you've shown me," Morello said during their confidential meeting, "you have grounds for a fault divorce based on adultery and financial malfeasance. The unauthorized removal of funds from your children's education accounts particularly strengthens your position." "I don't want to just divorce her," Grant said quietly. "I want her to understand exactly what she's thrown away and what it's going to cost her." Morello studied him carefully. "Revenge rarely provides the satisfaction people hope for, Mr. Blackwood." "This isn't about satisfaction," Grant replied. "It's about justice. She didn't just betray me. She betrayed our children. She stole their future and laughed about it." On the fourth day, while the twins were at school, Grant received a call from Reed. "You need to see this," the investigator said grimly. The link Reed sent led to an Instagram post from a Monaco lifestyle influencer. A candid shot of Veronica and Bradley on the deck of a spectacular yacht, champagne in hand, locked in a passionate embrace. The caption read, "Power couple goals at the hashtag Monaco Luxury Showcase." Grant stared at the timestamp, posted 3 hours ago. Not content with stealing from her family and lying about her whereabouts, Veronica was now flaunting her affair publicly, seemingly unconcerned about who might see it. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown international number. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out. We need to talk when I return." The kids deserve better than having this play out publicly. It was Veronica, using a different phone since he'd blocked her regular number. Grant's hands shook with rage as he typed back. The kids deserve better than having their mother steal their college funds for a luxury vacation with her lover. The response came quickly. "Don't be dramatic. The kids can get loans. I deserve this break after everything I've sacrificed for this family." The callous dismissal of their children's future hit Grant like a physical blow. The woman he'd married, the mother who had once cried with joy at their twins' birth, now considered her children's education a justifiable sacrifice for her affair. Grant stared at the message for a long moment, then calmly replied, "Come home. We'll discuss how to proceed." He set his phone down and walked his home office. Opening his safe, he removed their most important documents: property deeds, investment portfolios, insurance policies, and their children's trust documents. Everything that represented the life they'd built together. Grant Blackwood, who had risen from nothing through disciplined work and unwavering principles, made a decision. Veronica had shown him who she truly was. Not the partner he believed in for 19 years, but someone willing to sacrifice her own children's future for momentary pleasure. She would return to find her life transformed, just as she had transformed his. The architect would now redesign their shared reality, and this time he would build it to exact a price for betrayal. Chapter 3. The Architect's Blueprint. Grant's mind operated differently from most people's. As an architect, he visualized systems and structures, seeing how individual elements connected to form a comprehensive whole. Now, he applied this same approach to dismantling the life Veronica thought she could casually discard. First, he secured what mattered most, the twins' future. The morning after discovering Veronica's text, Grant met with his financial advisor, Vincent Pastor, a shrewd man who had helped him grow Meridian Architecture from a struggling startup to a profitable firm. "I need to protect my children's educational funds," Grant explained, showing Vincent the unauthorized withdrawals. Vincent's expression darkened. "This is serious, Grant. These transfers clearly weren't for family benefit. Can we create new accounts solely in my name? Accounts she can't access?" Vincent nodded. "We can establish an irrevocable educational trust for each child. Once the money goes in, it can only be used for educational expenses, and only you and the twins would be trustees." Within hours, Grant had transferred all remaining educational funds into the new protected trusts. He also moved half of their joint savings into his personal account, legally permissible as marital property, leaving Veronica's existing accounts untouched as evidence of her misappropriation. Next, Grant focused on their shared business interests. Years ago, when Veronica had briefly left her corporate job to launch a marketing consultancy, Grant had invested heavily in her venture and helped secure her first clients through his architectural connections. Though she had eventually returned to corporate work, the consultancy still existed on paper, with Veronica as CEO and Grant as the primary investor and CFO. A review of the consultancy's records revealed that Veronica had been using the business account as a personal slush fund, writing off luxury purchases as client development and research expenses. Grant documented every questionable transaction, then filed amended corporate tax returns that disavowed these personal expenses, protecting himself from potential tax liability. As for Meridian Architecture, Grant had always maintained full ownership of his firm. Veronica had no legal claim to it, though she had often leveraged her connection to him to enhance her professional standing. Grant contacted all of Meridian's clients and partners, informing them of a personal situation that required updating their contact information. "Please direct all communications exclusively through me or Wyatt moving forward," he wrote in a carefully worded email that revealed nothing specific yet established boundaries. While meticulously reorganizing their financial and professional lives, Grant also prepared their home. He boxed up Veronica's non-essential belongings and moved them to the garage, not destroying anything, but making it clear her presence in the house was no longer welcome. He changed the security system codes and replaced the smart locks with traditional ones requiring physical keys, which he provided only to the twins. Throughout these preparations, Grant maintained absolute normalcy with Zoe and Noah. He attended Noah's debate tournament, helped Zoe with her science project, and continued their college tours as scheduled. His children noticed his increased presence and attention, but seemed to appreciate it, especially with their mother's extended absence. 6 days after Veronica's departure, as Grant was reviewing architectural plans in his home office, he received a text from her. "Flight arrives tomorrow afternoon. Can you pick me up at 3 p.m.? The casual presumption that he would be waiting at her beck and call, after everything, crystallized Grant's resolve. He responded simply, "No." 3 dots appeared as she typed, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, "Fine. I'll take a car service. We need to talk privately before the kids get home." Grant didn't bother replying. Instead, he called Carson Reed and arranged for surveillance of the airport and house the following day. He wanted documentation of Veronica's return, who accompanied her, what luggage she brought, every detail that might prove relevant later. That evening, he sat down with the twins in the living room, his expression serious. I need to talk to you both about something important, he began. Your mother is coming home tomorrow, and things are going to be different. Is Mom okay? Zoe asked, immediately concerned. She's physically fine, Grant assured them. But our relationship isn't. There's no easy way to say this. Your mother and I are going to be separating. Noah stiffened. Because of her work? All the traveling. Partly, Grant said carefully. But there's more to it. Your mother has been having a relationship with someone else, her colleague, Bradley Kent. They've been together in Monaco this week. Silence fell as the twins processed this revelation. Zoe's eyes filled with tears, while Noah's face hardened in an expression reminiscent of Grant's own controlled anger. There's something else you need to know, Grant continued, his voice gentle but firm. Your mother made some financial decisions that affected your college funds. I've addressed the issue and created new, secure accounts, so your education is still fully funded. But you should be aware this happened. She took our college money? Noah asked incredulously. For what? Grant hesitated, balancing honesty with protection. For expenses related to her trip with Mr. Kent. Zoe's tears spilled over. How could she do that? I don't know, Grant admitted. But I promise you both, I've fixed it. Nothing about your future plans needs to change. He pulled both teenagers into a tight embrace, feeling their bodies shake with emotion. I need you to understand something important, he said. Whatever happens between your mother and me, we both love you. Her choices reflect on her, not on you, and not on your worth. What's going to happen now? Noah asked. Tomorrow will be difficult, Grant acknowledged. Your mother and I will need to have conversations you shouldn't be part of. I've arranged for you both to stay with Uncle Wyatt and Aunt Layla tomorrow night. But after that, are you getting divorced? Zoe pressed. Most likely yes. But that process takes time, and we'll navigate it together. After answering their questions as honestly as possible, Grant sent the twins to bed with reassurances of his unwavering support. Then he made one final preparation for Veronica's return. Opening his laptop, he created a document titled Terms of Dissolution that outlined his non-negotiable conditions. Full physical custody of the twins, retention of the family home, complete ownership of Meridian architecture, and comprehensive financial separation that would require Veronica to repay every dollar she had misappropriated from the children's accounts. The terms were harsh but fair, requiring accountability without vindictiveness. Grant knew Veronica would fight them, but he also knew she valued her professional reputation above all else. The evidence he had collected could devastate her career if made public, particularly in Boston's conservative business circles. As midnight approached, Grant stood at the window overlooking their carefully landscaped yard, mentally preparing for the confrontation to come. The Veronica, returning tomorrow, was not the woman he had married. She was someone capable of betraying her own children, someone who prioritized momentary pleasure over lifelong commitments. Grant had always been a builder, creating spaces where people could thrive. Now, he would use those same skills to dismantle what Veronica had destroyed and reconstruct a new life for himself and his children, a life built on honesty, respect, and unwavering integrity. The architect's blueprint for the future was complete. Tomorrow would begin its implementation. Chapter 4. Return and Reckoning. At precisely 4:37 p.m., a Blacktown car pulled into the Blackwood driveway. Grant watched from his home office window as Veronica emerged, sunglasses masking her eyes despite the overcast March sky. She wore an elegant ivory pantsuit that likely cost more than most people's monthly salary, her posture radiating the confidence of someone who believed they could manage any situation. Behind her came a porter with her luggage, 3 designer suitcases that hadn't been part of her collection before the Monaco trip. Grant noted this detail calmly, adding it to his mental inventory of her extravagances. He didn't move to greet her, instead watching as she entered the house using her key. The security system announced front door open through the integrated speakers, alerting him to her arrival as if she were now a stranger, which, in many ways, she was. Grant, she called, her voice carrying upstairs. I'm home. He descended the stairs slowly, observing how she surveyed the entryway, noticing the subtle changes he'd made. Her photographs removed from the wall gallery, her decorative items boxed and replaced with the children's academic awards and sports trophies. "Where are the kids?" she asked, removing her sunglasses to reveal carefully applied makeup that couldn't quite hide her exhaustion. "With Wyatt and Layla," Grant replied, his voice neutral. "I thought we should talk privately first." Veronica nodded, attempting a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's probably best. This situation has become complicated." "Complicated," Grant repeated, the word hanging between them like a poisoned offering. "Is that what you call stealing from our children and lying to your family?" Her smile faltered. "I think you're overreacting, Grant. I was always going to replace that money." "With what? Bradley Kent's money? Or were you planning to embezzle from Luminary next?" Veronica's expression hardened. "I don't appreciate your tone. I made a mistake, one I'm prepared to fix. There's no need for this hostility." Grant laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or burning dinner. You made a series of deliberate choices, Veronica. You chose to pursue an affair. You chose to steal from our children. You chose to lie, repeatedly, to all of us." "It wasn't stealing," she protested. "Those accounts are joint property. They were established exclusively for Zoe and Noah's education," Grant countered. "You knew that when you helped me set them up 19 years ago. You knew that every time we discussed college planning." He removed his phone from his pocket and pulled up the text message she'd sent. "The kids can get loans. I deserve this break." "Do you recognize this?" he asked, holding the screen toward her. Color drained from Veronica's face. "I was upset when I wrote that. You were attacking me." "I was questioning you," Grant corrected. "There's a difference." "And your instinctive response was to dismiss our children's future as less important than your vacation with your lover." Veronica's composure cracked slightly. "This isn't just about Bradley. Our marriage has been struggling for years, Grant. You're always working, always focused on your buildings and your legacy. So your solution was to betray me instead of talking to me." He maintained his calm, refusing to be baited into an emotional outburst that would give her leverage. "Did you try counseling? Did you initiate a single conversation about our issues before jumping into bed with a man 12 years your junior?" She flinched at the age reference, a deliberate bar Grant had calculated would land. Veronica had always been sensitive about aging, increasing her cosmetic procedures and anti-aging regimens as she approached 45. "This isn't productive," she said, regaining her corporate poise. "We need to discuss practical matters. I assume you're wanting a divorce." "It's already in process," Grant confirmed. "Diana Morello is handling my representation." This visibly rattled Veronica. Morello's reputation for securing advantageous settlements for her clients was legendary in Boston legal circles. "That's aggressive," Veronica managed. "There's no need to involve Boston's most cutthroat divorce attorney. We can handle this amicably." "Like you handled our finances amicably?" Grant asked. "Or perhaps you mean as amicably as you explained your affair to our children?" Veronica paled further. "You told Zoe and Noah? Without me present? How could you?" "They deserve the truth, presented compassionately and without drama. Something you seem incapable of providing." "You had no right." "I had every right as their father," Grant interrupted, steel entering his voice. "And unlike you, I consider their well-being paramount." Veronica's calculated facade was crumbling. She hadn't expected Grant to act so decisively, had likely anticipated the same conflict-avoidant husband who had accommodated her increasing absences and demands for years. "I need a drink," she muttered, moving toward the kitchen. Grant followed, watching as she poured herself a generous measure of expensive scotch, another of her recent affectations, adopted after Bradley's influence. She drank half of it in one swallow, then turned to face him. "What do you want, Grant? To punish me? To humiliate me?" "I want accountability," he answered simply. "I've prepared terms for our separation and divorce. They're fair but firm." He retrieved the document from his office and placed it on the kitchen island between them. Veronica scanned it, her expression darkening with each page. "This is absurd," she finally declared. "You expect me to surrender all claims to our marital property? To repay funds that were legally mine to access? To give you full custody? I expect you to prioritize our children's well-being for once, Grant replied. Those terms ensure their lives remain stable and secure despite your choices. I won't sign this, Veronica said, pushing the document away. No court would enforce such one-sided terms. Grant nodded, having anticipated this response. That's your prerogative. If you prefer to handle this through litigation, I'm prepared for that path as well. He withdrew a second folder from his briefcase and placed it beside the terms. This contains a small sample of the evidence I've accumulated. Financial records showing your systematic diversion of family funds, documentation of your affair dating back 7 months, and statement from witnesses at Luminary regarding your misuse of company resources to facilitate your relationship with Bradley. Veronica's hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages. You had me investigated? Follow. I protected my interests and our children's future, Grant corrected. Something you should understand, given your own calculated actions. Her eyes narrowed. This is blackmail. This is reality, Grant countered. Your actions have consequences, Veronica. I'm simply laying them out clearly. He let the evidence speak for itself. Photos of Veronica and Bradley in intimate situations spanning months. Credit card statements showing parallel purchases in identical locations. Hotel receipts for rooms booked under her name, but occupied by 2 people. Transcripts of lies she'd told Grant about her whereabouts, paired with social media posts proving her deception. Most damning were the financial records showing the progressive drain of family resources. Small transfers at first, growing larger and culminating in the massive withdrawal from the college funds. Luminary has a morality clause for executive contracts, Grant noted as Veronica studied a particularly compromising photo. Section 8.3, if I recall correctly, prohibits conduct that would bring disrepute to the company brand, including financial impropriety and inappropriate relationships with subordinates. Veronica's head snapped up. You wouldn't dare send this to the board. I prefer not to, Grant agreed. That would hurt the twins by creating public scandal. But if you force a protracted legal battle that damages their stability further, I'll use every tool available to protect them. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Veronica's face. She understood the implicit threat. Cooperate with his terms, or risk losing not just her family, but her carefully cultivated career. I need time to consider this, she said, her voice smaller. You have 24 hours, Grant replied. In the meantime, you'll be staying at the guest house, not in our home. The guest house? But all my things. Essential items have been moved there. The rest are boxed in the garage for your eventual relocation. Veronica stared at him, reconciling this unyielding man with the accommodating husband she'd taken for granted. You've changed, Grant. No, he corrected her. I've always been this person, principled, protective of what matters, unwilling to tolerate betrayal. You simply never gave me reason to show this side until now. As Grant walked away, Veronica called after him. The twins will resent you for this, for tearing apart their family. He turned back, meeting her gaze directly. Our family was torn apart when you decided your pleasure was more important than your children's future. Don't insult them by pretending otherwise. The confrontation had gone exactly as Grant had planned, revealing Veronica's true priorities while establishing his position of strength. He had laid out the consequences of her actions without resorting to emotional manipulation or vindictiveness. Now, as he retreated to his office to message Wyatt about the twins' overnight stay, Grant allowed himself a moment of private grief for the marriage he had believed in, for the partner he had trusted completely. 19 years of shared history, dissolving in the acid of Veronica's betrayal. But grief would not dominate his future or his children's. The blueprint he had designed would ensure that. Chapter 5. Ripples and Repercussions. Bradley Kent considered himself a master strategist. At 33, he had navigated from a modest Minnesota upbringing to the executive suite through a combination of charm, calculated risk-taking, and careful alliance building. His relationship with Veronica Blackwood had begun as another strategic move. The powerful CMO could accelerate his ascent within Luminary Hotels, but had evolved into something more intense than he'd anticipated. Veronica possessed qualities Bradley admired: ambition that matched his own, sophisticated taste cultivated through decades in elite circles, and a ruthless practicality about using every advantage to get ahead. Their affair had been exhilarating precisely because of the calculated risks they took, flaunting their connection at industry events while maintaining plausible deniability. Monaco had changed that dynamic. Veronica had become reckless, insisting on public displays of affection and extravagant expenditures that could easily be traced. Bradley had assumed her sudden financial generosity came from company expense accounts or her personal wealth, not from her children's education funds. That revelation came via a terse text message the morning after their return. "Grant knows everything. He has evidence. Meeting with lawyers today. Don't contact me at home." Bradley frowned at his phone, annoyed by this complication. The affair had been meant to enhance his professional trajectory, not create messy, personal entanglements. If Veronica's husband possessed evidence that could implicate him in financial impropriety or company policy violations that posed a significant threat to Bradley's carefully constructed career path, deciding that information was his best defense, Bradley made a call to Danielle Winters, Luminary's executive assistant to the CEO. Danielle managed the company's internal intelligence network and owed Bradley for expediting her nephew's admission to an exclusive private school through his connections. "I need background on Grant Blackwood," Bradley said without preamble. Veronica's husband. "Anything relevant to his character, business approach, potential vulnerabilities." "That's an unusual request," Danielle noted. "Any specific context I should know about?" "Let's call it relationship contingency planning," Bradley replied smoothly. Veronica mentioned potential marriage difficulties, and "I want to ensure Luminary's executive stability isn't affected." Within hours, Danielle had compiled a comprehensive profile that left Bradley increasingly unsettled. Grant Blackwood wasn't the oblivious, workaholic husband Veronica had described. He was a respected figure in Boston's architectural and business communities, known for unwavering integrity and strategic thinking. His firm had never faced litigation or ethics complaints, despite operating in an industry rife with both. Most concerning were the testimonials from clients and competitors alike. Grant Blackwood did not compromise his principles, and he did not forget transgressions against him or his interests. Bradley was contemplating this information when his phone rang. Veronica, calling from a number he didn't recognize. "We need to meet," she said without greeting, her voice tight. Privately, away from work. They arranged to meet at a discreet wine bar in Cambridge, far from their usual haunts. When Veronica arrived, Bradley barely recognized her. Gone was the polished executive with calculated warmth. In her place sat a woman visibly strained, wearing minimal makeup and simple clothing. "Grant has everything," she said without preamble, her voice low. "Photos, financial records, witness statements. He's been building a case for weeks while appearing to be completely oblivious." Bradley maintained his composure. "What exactly does everything include?" "All of it. Our trips, the hotel stays, the gifts. And the money. He knows every dollar I moved, including from the kids' accounts." That last detail made Bradley wince. "You never mentioned using their college funds." Veronica's eyes flashed. "Don't you dare judge me. Those accounts are legally joint property." "I'm not judging. I'm assessing liability," Bradley clarified. "If there's financial impropriety involved, that changes the calculus for both of us." "For both of us?" Veronica repeated, incredulous. "You think you're implicated in this?" "If Grant has evidence of our relationship and connects it to misappropriated funds, then yes, I could be considered complicit." Bradley kept his voice clinical, detached. "What are his demands?" Veronica outlined Grant's terms: full custody, retention of family assets, financial restitution, and a clean professional separation that wouldn't damage the twins' reputations or futures. "He's using my career as leverage," she concluded bitterly. "If I fight the terms, he'll submit evidence to Luminary's board that would trigger the morality clause in my contract." Bradley absorbed this, mentally calculating his exposure. "And what have you decided?" "I haven't yet," Veronica admitted. "But I need to know where you stand if this becomes public." The question was really about their relationship's future, Bradley knew. Veronica was asking if he would stand beside her through scandal, possible career implosion, and family turmoil. I think we need to be pragmatic, he replied carefully. Fighting Grant seems counterproductive if he has the evidence you describe. A clean, quiet resolution benefits everyone. Disappointment flickered across Veronica's face. Including you. Including all of us, Bradley corrected. Your children don't deserve public scandal, and neither do our careers. The rest of their conversation maintained this careful distance, with Bradley subtly positioning himself as a concerned colleague rather than a committed partner. By the time they parted, Veronica understood what Bradley would never explicitly state. Their relationship had been exhilarating, but was now a liability he couldn't afford. Meanwhile, across town, Grant was meeting with Howard Pearson, CEO of Luminary Hotels and Veronica's direct superior. The meeting had been difficult to secure, but impossible to refuse once Grant mentioned urgent matters concerning executive conduct and financial propriety. Pearson, a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and calculating eyes, ushered Grant into his private office with practiced corporate warmth. Grant Blackwood, it's been, 2 years since the Chicago Luminary ribbon cutting? Your design still garners industry praise. Thank you, Grant acknowledged. I wish this visit were about architecture. Pearson's smile faded as he gestured to a seating area away from his desk. Your message suggested sensitive matters. How can I help? Grant placed a sealed envelope on the table between them. This contains information about an inappropriate relationship between two Luminary executives that has implications for company policy, financial propriety, and potentially shareholder interests. Pearson's expression remained neutral, though his eyes sharpened. May I ask which executives? My wife, Veronica Blackwood, and Bradley Kent, whom she personally recruited and now supervises. To his credit, Pearson didn't feign surprise or denial. I see. And you're bringing this to me rather than our HR department because the situation involves executive misuse of company resources to facilitate their relationship, and because Bradley's rapid promotions under Veronica's supervision raise questions about your corporate governance that shareholders might find concerning. Pearson leaned back slightly. That sounds perilously close to a threat, Mr. Blackwood. It's context for a proposition, Grant corrected. I have no interest in damaging Luminary as an institution or creating public scandal that would affect innocent employees. My concern is protecting my children from the fallout of their mother's choices. Admirable, Pearson said carefully. What exactly are you proposing? Veronica and I are separating. She'll be transitioning out of the family home and assuming financial responsibility for her actions. I'm suggesting Luminary might benefit from reassigning her to a position that doesn't involve supervision of Mr. Kent, preferably in a different regional office. Understanding dawned in Pearson's eyes. You want us to transfer her away for Boston. I believe a clean geographical separation would benefit everyone involved, including Luminary's organizational health. Pearson considered this. Our Asian expansion is underway. Singapore would require an experienced marketing executive. Singapore would be appropriate, Grant agreed. As for Mr. Kent, his continued employment is your prerogative, though I would suggest his judgment in professional matters deserves review. And if we facilitate this transition discreetly? Pearson asked. Grant slid the envelope back toward himself, unsealed. Then this information remains private, known only to those directly involved. The CEO studied Grant for a long moment. You're not what I expected from Veronica's descriptions. Few of us are exactly as others portray us, Grant replied evenly. After the meeting, Grant didn't return home immediately. Instead, he drove to the Charles River and walked along its banks, processing the morning's events. He had taken no pleasure in leveraging Veronica's career. It felt manipulative in ways that contradicted his usual principles. But protecting the twins' stability required creating geographical distance between their daily lives and Veronica's ongoing choices. His phone buzzed with a text from Wyatt. Kids doing great here. Noah destroyed me at chess, and Zoe's teaching Layla some complicated biochemistry thing. Call when you're ready for them to come home. Grant smiled faintly, grateful for his friend's steadfast support. Wyatt had been his first architectural client 20 years ago, when Grant was designing small residential renovations for a rented desk in a shared office space. Their friendship had endured through Wyatt's divorce and remarriage, through business challenges and personal triumphs. Before heading home, Grant made one final stop at his firm's office, needing the comfort of familiar work and purposeful activity. Meridian Architecture occupied the top 2 floors of a building Grant had designed himself, with glass-walled studios that flooded with natural light and collaborative spaces that facilitated the creative process. As he reviewed project plans and consulted with his team, Grant felt his perspective shifting. For weeks, he had focused exclusively on dismantling what Veronica had broken. Now, standing amid the tangible evidence of his life's work, he began envisioning what could be built from the ruins, a different future, perhaps more authentic than what had come before. By evening, when Grant retrieved the twins from Wyatt's home, he had achieved a fragile sense of equilibrium. The confrontation with Veronica and his meeting with Pearson had set irreversible changes in motion, but these changes would ultimately serve the architecture of his family's future well-being. That night, as Zoe and Noah settled into their familiar routines with quiet resilience, Grant received a text from Veronica. "I'll sign your terms. Moving to Singapore next month. We'll arrange visits with the kids around my travel schedule." No apology, no acknowledgement of the pain she had caused, just practical capitulation in the face of untenable alternatives. Grant felt a hollow victory as he replied simply, "I'll have the papers ready tomorrow." The architect's blueprint was being implemented exactly as designed. Yet as Grant sat alone in his study after the twins went to bed, he wondered what structure would eventually rise from these carefully laid foundations, and whether it would fill the empty spaces Veronica's betrayal had carved into their lives. Chapter 6. Unexpected Deviations. The following week brought an uneasy new routine. Veronica remained in the guest house, interacting minimally with Grant and awkwardly with the twins, who maintained civil but distant relationships with their mother. Legal proceedings advanced, with Diana Morello efficiently processing the separation agreement Veronica had signed. For Grant, the mechanics of dissolution proceeded exactly as planned, until Wednesday morning, when his carefully constructed blueprint encountered its first significant deviation. He was reviewing construction plans in his office when Vincent Pastor called, his normally unflappable financial advisor sounding distinctly concerned. "Grant, we have a situation. There's been unusual activity across several of your accounts." "What kind of activity?" Grant asked, immediately alert. "Systematic probing of security measures. Multiple failed login attempts using variations of your personal information. Someone's trying to access your accounts using social engineering techniques." Grant's mind immediately went to Veronica, but this seemed too technically sophisticated for her usual approaches. "Can you trace the attempts?" "They're being routed through various VPNs, but the pattern suggests someone familiar with your financial structure. They're not trying random accounts. They're targeting specific ones in a specific sequence." "Lock everything down," Grant instructed. "Change authentication protocols. Require voice verification for any transactions over $1,000. After ending the call, Grant stared at his computer screen, mentally reviewing who might have both motive and capability for such attempts. The answer came to him with disturbing clarity: Bradley Kent. Before pursuing Veronica, Bradley had been Luminary's head of digital strategy with a background in financial technology. Unlike Veronica, whose privileged upbringing had focused on social connections rather than technical skills, Bradley would understand exactly how to systematically probe financial security protocols. Grant's suspicions were confirmed that afternoon when Carson Reed called with an update on his continued surveillance. "Kent met with someone interesting yesterday," the investigator reported. "Felix Navarro, a former white hat hacker who now runs a digital security consultancy that operates in some gray areas. They met at a tech conference and spent nearly 2 hours in private conversation." "Can you get details on what they discussed?" "Not specifically, but Kent paid Navarro $10,000 via cryptocurrency transfer immediately afterward. The transaction was sophisticated but not untraceable." Grant processed this information, recognizing the implied threat. Kent wasn't accepting his relegation to collateral damage in Veronica's downfall. He was actively seeking leverage against Grant, whether financial vulnerability, compromising information, or something else that could be used as counterbalance. Keep monitoring Kent, Grant instructed Reed, and see what he can find on Navarro's recent activities. That evening, as Grant helped Zoe with her biochemistry homework at the kitchen table, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We should talk. Issues of mutual concern. Arlington Street Starbucks. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. BK." Grant showed no reaction, calmly explaining enzyme catalysis to Zoe while mentally evaluating his options. Meeting Bradley directly carried risks, but also potential advantages. Understanding his endgame might prove valuable. The following afternoon, Grant arrived at the designated location 15 minutes early, positioning himself at a corner table with clear sight lines to all entrances. He had instructed Reed to maintain discreet surveillance and record the encounter. Bradley arrived precisely on time, dressed in the studied casual elegance that characterized his professional image. Designer jeans, tailored blazer, artfully tousled hair. He carried a single cup of coffee and approached Grant's table with confident strides. "Grant Blackwood," Bradley said, extending his hand. "Finally, we meet in person." Grant ignored the offered hand. "Let's skip the pretense of civility, Mr. Kent. What do you want?" Bradley's smile tightened as he took the seat across from Grant. "Direct. I appreciate that. I'll be equally direct. Your campaign against Veronica has now entangled me professionally, and I'm here to negotiate a ceasefire." "There's nothing to negotiate," Grant replied evenly. "Your affair with my wife and involvement in her financial misconduct have natural consequences. You're experiencing them." "Financial misconduct is a serious allegation," Bradley noted. "One that cuts both ways. I've been researching Meridian architecture's history. Fascinating reading." Grant maintained his composure, recognizing the implicit threat. "My firm's records are immaculate. 3 independent audits in the past 5 years confirm it." "On the surface, certainly," Bradley agreed. "But if someone were looking specifically at your early property acquisitions between 2008 and 2010, particularly the waterfront lots you purchased at suspiciously low prices during the financial crisis, interesting patterns emerge." This was a calculated attack on Grant's most vulnerable professional period. During the housing crisis, he had indeed acquired several distressed properties at favorable rates, all completely legally, but through complex transactions that could be mischaracterized by someone with malicious intent. "Those transactions were fully documented and proper," Grant stated. "Every seller was represented by legal counsel." "Documentation can be interpreted many ways," Bradley countered smoothly, "especially when presented to regulatory bodies that tend to investigate first and verify later. A federal real estate investigation would be tremendously disruptive to Meridian, wouldn't it? Even if ultimately dismissed." Grant studied the younger man before him, recognizing the practiced manipulation of someone accustomed to leveraging others' vulnerabilities. "Is this why you've been probing my financial accounts? Searching for leverage?" Bradley's slight hesitation confirmed Grant's suspicion. "I'm simply suggesting mutual restraint would benefit everyone. You withdraw any information provided to Luminary's leadership about me, and I ensure no troubling questions arise about Meridian's foundation." "That sounds very much like blackmail," Grant observed, his voice calm. "I prefer to call it pragmatic conflict resolution," Bradley replied with a practiced smile. "We're both businessmen. We understand cost-benefit analysis." Grant allowed a moment of silence, his expression unreadable. Then he reached for his phone, pulled up a specific audio file, and played it without comment. Bradley's own voice emerged from the speaker. "If you can access his personal and business accounts, focus on transactions from 2008 to 2010. I need leverage on his early property deals, something that suggests impropriety, even if we have to enhance the interpretation." Color drained from Bradley's face as the recording continued, documenting his explicit instructions to Felix Navarro to manufacture evidence against Grant if necessary. "That's inadmissible," Bradley hissed when Grant stopped the playback. "Recorded without consent." For court, perhaps, Grant acknowledged. But Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for recordings, making this perfectly legal to share with, say, Howard Pearson or the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, which takes attempted hacking of financial institutions quite seriously. Bradley's confident facade cracked further. You're bluffing. I don't bluff, Mr. Kent. I prepare. Grant leaned forward slightly. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate your counterattack? That I wouldn't have monitored your movements and communications once you became a threat to my family? For the first time, genuine uncertainty flickered across Bradley's face. He had underestimated Grant, dismissed him as an aging professional blindsided by personal betrayal, not recognizing the strategist who had built a successful firm through careful planning and flawless execution. What do you want? Bradley finally asked, his voice stripped of its practiced charm. I want what I've wanted from the beginning. Protection for my children and accountability for those who betrayed them. Grant's voice remained calm, but carried unmistakable resolve. You will cease all attempts to access my accounts or fabricate evidence against me. You will decline any international transfer luminary offers and remain in Boston, where Mr. Pearson can monitor your professional conduct directly. You expect me to sabotage my own career advancement? I expect you to experience consequences proportional to your choices, Grant corrected. Had you simply conducted an affair with my wife, your career wouldn't be my concern. But you participated in spending my children's education funds, then attempted to hack my accounts and fabricate evidence against me. Each escalation carries its own price. Bradley's confidence had evaporated entirely, replaced by the naked calculation of someone reassessing their position in light of unexpected information. And if I agree to your terms? Then the recording of your conversation with Navarro remains private. Your attempted financial crimes don't become matters for federal investigation. You get the second chance you don't deserve. After a tense silence, Bradley nodded once, curtly. Fine, I'll stay in Boston. One more thing, Grant added. Veronica believes your relationship ended because of practical considerations, not your choice. That narrative remains in place. She never learns you attempted to attack me directly. Bradley frowned. Why do you care what she thinks about me? I don't, Grant replied honestly. But my children will interact with their mother for decades to come. Her complete disillusionment with you needs to happen naturally, not through my intervention. Their relationship with her is complicated enough without adding that dimension. Understanding dawned in Bradley's eyes. Grant was still thinking 3 moves ahead, considering long-term family dynamics even amid conflict. It was a type of strategic sophistication Bradley recognized, but couldn't fully emulate, too focused on immediate advantage to consider distant repercussions. Agreed, Bradley said finally, rising from his seat. We have an understanding. Not quite, Grant countered, remaining seated. We have a non-negotiable arrangement that you will honor because the alternatives are significantly worse. That's not an understanding. It's a reality you've created for yourself. As Bradley walked away, shoulders stiff with suppressed rage, Grant felt no satisfaction. Only a weary recognition that protecting his family would require constant vigilance against threats he hadn't anticipated when designing his original blueprint. That evening, Diana Morello called with unexpected news. Veronica's attorney contacted me. She's requesting modifications to the custody arrangement before finalizing. Grant tensed. What modifications? Nothing drastic. She's accepting the Singapore transfer and your primary physical custody, but wants guaranteed video calls 3 times weekly and in-person visits during school breaks. She's also requesting to retain certain family heirlooms and mementos. These were reasonable requests, more reasonable than Grant had expected, given Veronica's initial resistance. The scheduled calls and visits are fine, assuming they don't disrupt the twins' academic commitments. As for possessions, I'll need a specific list. Already provided, Diana confirmed. It's mainly personal items, jewelry from her family, photo albums from before your marriage. Nothing that impacts household stability. After ending the call, Grant found himself standing before the family photo wall, now rearranged to focus on the twins' milestones rather than the false narrative of perfect family harmony. The request suggested a shift in Veronica's approach, less combative, more focused on maintaining connections to her children despite geographical separation. He wondered if their confrontation had genuinely impacted her understanding of her actions, or if this was merely another strategic adaptation. Either way, it represented a deviation from his expected pattern, one that would require adjustments to his ongoing plans. The architect in Grant recognized that even the most carefully designed structure must accommodate unexpected elements during construction. The blueprint remained sound, but its implementation would require flexibility and adaptation as new challenges emerged. What had begun as a straightforward project of dissolution and reconstruction was evolving into something more complex, a dynamic system requiring continuous refinement. Grant Blackwood, master of structural integrity, now faced his greatest professional challenge in his most personal space, rebuilding a life strong enough to withstand unexpected forces while protecting its most vulnerable inhabitants. Chapter 7. Foundations Anew. 3 months passed. Spring blossomed into summer as the Blackwood family's transformation unfolded according to Grant's revised blueprint, incorporating adjustments for unexpected variables while maintaining its core structural integrity. Veronica departed for Singapore in late April, her separation from the family home managed with minimal disruption to the twins' routines. She maintained her scheduled video calls and sent thoughtful messages about their academic interests, a marked shift from her previous self-absorption. Whether this represented genuine evolution or calculated image management remained unclear to Grant, though he maintained neutrality in all his communications regarding her. Bradley Kent remained in Boston, his ambitious trajectory at Luminary effectively halted. Occasional surveillance reports from Carson Reed confirmed he had honored the terms of their arrangement, making no further attempts to undermine Grant professionally or personally. He had, however, begun cultivating a relationship with Luminary's chief technology officer, clearly seeking alternative pathways for advancement that didn't require international relocation. For Grant, the summer brought a professional renaissance. Freed from the emotional drain of Veronica's deception, he channeled his energy into Meridian architecture with renewed creativity. The firm secured 3 major contracts: an arts center in Portland, a sustainable corporate campus in Providence, and a community-focused residential development in western Massachusetts, all championing Grant's philosophy of architecture that served human needs while respecting environmental contexts. Most importantly, Zoe and Noah were thriving despite the family's reconfiguration. Their initial shock and hurt had evolved into resilient adaptation. Noah had received early acceptance to MIT's summer engineering program, while Zoe earned a competitive research internship at Massachusetts General Hospital's biochemistry laboratory. On a warm July evening, as Grant prepared dinner in their kitchen, a skill he developed with surprising enjoyment since Veronica's departure, he observed his children on the back patio. Noah was explaining some complex algorithm to Zoe, who listened with genuine interest despite her different academic focus. Their easy camaraderie, always present but now deepened through shared challenge, filled Grant with profound gratitude. The doorbell interrupted his reflections. Grant wasn't expecting visitors, and the twins' friends typically texted before arriving. Opening the front door, he found himself facing Olivia Reeves, a woman he hadn't seen in nearly 20 years. "Grant Blackwood," she said, a smile warming her face. "You look exactly the same, except for the distinguished silver at your temples." "Olivia," Grant managed, genuinely surprised. "This is unexpected." Olivia Reeves had been his architectural mentor during his graduate studies and early career, a brilliant designer 15 years his senior who had recognized Grant's potential when he was still drafting residential renovations. They had worked closely until she relocated to Chicago to lead a prestigious firm there, maintaining sporadic professional contact over the years. "I should have called first," she acknowledged. "But I'm in Boston for the Urban Design Conference, saw your Harborside Innovation Center yesterday, and couldn't resist the impulse to reconnect with its creator." Grant invited her in, introducing her to the twins as one of the most influential architects in my early career. Zoe, and Noah greeted her warmly before returning to their discussion on the patio, leaving the adults to converse. "They're remarkable," Olivia observed, watching the teenagers through the kitchen window. "Perfect blend of confidence and humility." "They've faced some challenges recently," Grant said, resuming dinner preparation. "Their mother and I separated a few months ago. She's relocated to Singapore." Olivia absorbed this information without prying. "Based on what I've observed in the past 15 minutes, they have a father who provides extraordinary stability." The simple acknowledgement of his parenting, coming from someone who had known him before family life reshaped his priorities, affected Grant more deeply than expected. Olivia had always possessed the ability to see beyond surface presentations to core truths. Their conversation flowed easily as Grant completed dinner preparations, spanning professional developments, industry changes, and personal evolutions. Olivia had married in her 50s, divorced 5 years later, incompatible approaches to life's fundamental questions, and now led one of Chicago's most innovative architectural practices while mentoring young designers from disadvantaged backgrounds. When Grant invited her to stay for dinner, she accepted with evident pleasure. The meal became an unexpected delight. Olivia engaged the twins in genuine conversation about their interests, sharing relevant connections from her extensive network and asking insightful questions that demonstrated actual listening rather than polite attention. "Dad, why haven't we met Olivia before?" Zoe asked as they enjoyed dessert on the patio. "She's way more interesting than most of your architect friends." Professional divergence. Olivia answered before Grant could respond. "I've been Chicago-based while your father built his practice here, but that might be changing soon." Grant looked at her questioningly. "I'm considering a bi-coastal arrangement," Olivia explained, "opening an East Coast studio while maintaining my Chicago operation. Boston's investment in sustainable urban development makes it particularly appealing." "You'd be a significant addition to the city's architectural community," Grant acknowledged. "Which brings me to an ulterior motive for my visit," Olivia admitted with characteristic directness. "I've been following Meridian's evolution, particularly your recent projects emphasizing community integration and environmental responsibility. There might be potential for collaboration." The conversation shifted to professional possibilities, with Olivia outlining a vision for combined resources that would enable both firms to pursue larger, more impactful projects while maintaining their distinct identities and principles. After Olivia departed with promises of further discussion, Noah looked at his father with uncharacteristic perceptiveness. "She's interesting, and she looks at you differently than most people do." "Differently how?" Grant asked, genuinely curious about his son's observation. "Like she's actually seeing you, not just what you can do for her," Noah replied thoughtfully. Zoe nodded agreement. "Mom always looked at people calculating what they offered her, like relationships were transactions." Olivia seemed genuinely interested in who we are. Their insightful assessment reminded Grant that his children were no longer young kids, but emerging adults with increasingly sophisticated understanding of human dynamics. "Olivia was important in my professional development," he acknowledged. "She recognized potential in my work before I fully saw it myself." "You should have her over again," Zoe suggested casually, "or at least explore the collaboration she mentioned." "You seemed energized by the conversation." Grant considered his daughter's observation, recognizing its accuracy. The evening had awakened possibilities he hadn't contemplated during his reconstruction of their family life. The potential for new connections, unexpected collaborations, expansions beyond the careful boundaries he'd established during his marriage. Over the following weeks, discussions with Olivia evolved from conceptual to specific. Their firms would maintain independent identities while establishing a joint venture for larger projects that required their combined expertise and resources. The arrangement would involve regular collaboration between Boston and Chicago, with digital coordination supplemented by periodic in-person work sessions. This professional development coincided with another significant milestone, the twins' 18th birthday in early August. Grant organized a celebration at their favorite waterfront restaurant, inviting their closest friends and key supportive adults who had helped them navigate recent challenges. Veronica participated via video call from Singapore, during the family portion of the celebration, sending thoughtful gifts that demonstrated more consideration of the twins' actual interests than her previous presents had shown. She seemed genuinely committed to maintaining meaningful connection despite geographical separation, a development Grant cautiously welcomed for the twins' emotional well-being. Following the public celebration, Grant presented Zoe and Noah with documents establishing their full control over their respective educational trusts upon turning 18. "These accounts are now entirely yours," he explained. "I've structured them to provide scheduled distributions for tuition and living expenses during your undergraduate years, but you have legal authority over all decisions." "You're trusting us completely with our college funds?" Noah asked, surprised by this level of autonomy. "I've always trusted you," Grant corrected gently. "These documents simply make that trust legally explicit. You've both demonstrated exceptional judgment and responsibility, especially these past months." Zoe studied the financial statements with her characteristic thoroughness. "There's more here than before Mom took the money. How did you replace it so quickly?" "I redirected a substantial portion of my recent architectural fees directly to your accounts," Grant explained. "Meridian is doing exceptionally well this year." What he didn't mention was the significant personal sacrifices this had required. Postponing home renovations, delaying equipment upgrades at the firm, working additional hours to secure supplemental projects. Diana Morello was still pursuing financial restitution for Veronica through legal channels. But Grant had been determined to restore the twins' educational funding immediately, regardless of that outcome. "You shouldn't have had to do that," Noah said quietly, understanding the implications. "It was Mom's responsibility to replace what she took." "Financial responsibility takes many forms," Grant replied. "Supporting your education has always been my highest priority. The specific mechanisms are secondary." This simple statement, delivered without martyrdom or resentment, embodied Grant's approach to the entire post-separation period, focusing on constructive solutions rather than assigning blame, establishing new patterns rather than dwelling on broken ones. Later that week, as Grant reviewed preliminary plans for a joint project with Olivia's firm, his phone rang with a Chicago area code. "The collaboration documents look solid," Olivia said without preamble, her characteristic directness unchanged by their evolving professional relationship. "But I have a personal question. Are you exclusively focused on rebuilding your professional life? Or is there room for exploring other reconstructions as well?" The question's implication was clear, its timing deliberate, coming after several months of professional re-engagement, during which their personal connection had gradually deepened through regular conversations and occasional shared meals when Olivia visited Boston. "I've been focused on providing stability during transition," Grant answered carefully. "The twins have experienced significant upheaval. An admirable priority," Olivia acknowledged. "And your children seem remarkably stable, based on my observations. My question is whether your protective structure has room for additional elements that might enhance rather than complicate its integrity." The architectural metaphor wasn't lost on Grant. "Thoughtfully integrated additions can strengthen an existing structure," he replied, "with proper foundation work and careful attention to load-bearing considerations." Olivia laughed softly. "Are we still talking about architecture, Grant?" "Metaphorically," he admitted, "but the principles apply across contexts." "Then perhaps we should discuss those principles over dinner when I'm in Boston next week," she suggested. "A conversation about potential integrated additions to our respective life structures." After they disconnected, Grant found himself smiling, a spontaneous expression that reflected genuine anticipation rather than the controlled contentment he had cultivated since Veronica's departure. Olivia's straightforward approach, free from manipulation or hidden agendas, represented a fundamentally different dynamic than he had experienced in his marriage's later years. That evening, as the twins prepared for their respective academic programs, Grant contemplated the evolving blueprint of their reconstituted family. The foundations had proven sound, capable of supporting both the original structure and new potential additions. What had begun as a defensive reaction to betrayal was transforming into something more profound, an authentic reconstruction based on honest assessment of what truly mattered. The architect was creating his most important design, not a building of concrete and steel, but a life structured around integrity, purpose, and genuine connection. And unlike his marriage to Veronica, this design incorporated flexibility for evolution without compromising its core principles. For the first time since discovering his wife's betrayal, Grant Blackwood felt not just resigned acceptance of change, but genuine anticipation for the future being constructed from carefully selected elements of the past and innovative possibilities yet to be fully realized. Chapter 8. Unexpected Tremors. September brought crisp autumn air and new routines. Zoe and Noah began their senior year with focused determination, their college applications nearly complete and their academic trajectories clearly defined. Grant's professional collaboration with Olivia progressed from theoretical to practical as their firms secured their first joint commission, a cultural center in Hartford that would showcase both their architectural philosophies. Their personal relationship had evolved with similar purpose, founded on mutual respect and transparent communication. Olivia's bicoastal arrangement meant limited time together, but their interactions carried a depth and authenticity Grant had forgotten was possible between two people with complex, established lives. On a professional level, Grant had achieved everything outlined in his reconstruction blueprint. Meridian Architecture was thriving, with innovative projects and expanding influence. The twins were flourishing academically and emotionally, adapting to their reconfigured family with resilience. Even his co-parenting relationship with Veronica had stabilized into a functional arrangement focused on the children's well-being, which made the unexpected tremor in this carefully reconstructed foundation all the more concerning when it arrived on a mundane Tuesday morning. Grant was reviewing construction documents in his office when his assistant interrupted apologetically. "Mr. Blackwood, there's a Ms. Audrey Winters here without an appointment. She says it's a personal matter requiring immediate attention." The name meant nothing to Grant. Did she say what it's regarding? Only that it concerns Bradley Kent and information you need to know urgently. Grant tensed. Bradley had maintained silence since their confrontation months ago, honoring their arrangement with apparent recognition of the consequences of deviation. Any message concerning him warranted immediate attention. "Send her in," Grant instructed, quickly clearing sensitive documents from his desk. Audrey Winters proved to be a polished woman in her early 30s, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to professional environments. She carried an expensive leather portfolio and assessed Grant's office with quick, evaluative glances before speaking. "Thank you for seeing me without notice, Mr. Blackwood. I'm Bradley Kent's sister. This was unexpected." Reed's background investigation had described Bradley as an only child. "I wasn't aware Bradley had a sister," Grant commented neutrally. "Half-sister," she clarified. "Different fathers, significant age gap. Our connection isn't public knowledge by mutual preference." "And why has this private family matter brought you to my office, Ms. Winters?" Audrey placed her portfolio on the edge of Grant's desk. "Because my brother's obsession with destroying you has become concerning, and I believe you should be informed of his recent activities." Grant maintained his composed expression, though his mind raced with implications. "I was under the impression Mr. Kent and I had reached an understanding months ago. An understanding he's been quietly undermining while maintaining surface compliance," Audrey said grimly. "Bradley has always played multiple strategies simultaneously. It's what makes him effective in business and dangerous as an adversary. And you're betraying his confidence because his vendetta against you has become destructive to himself and potentially others." She opened her portfolio and removed several documents. "I work in risk assessment for financial institutions. My brother recently asked for my professional opinion on various strategies for what he termed competitive disruption, targeting you and your firm." She placed the documents on Grant's desk. Detailed analyses of Meridian Architecture's client relationships, financial structure, and potential vulnerabilities, along with several proposed approaches for exploiting these vulnerabilities without apparent connection to Bradley. "These are concerning," Grant acknowledged, reviewing the material, "but not entirely surprising given our history. Why bring them to me directly rather than simply counseling your brother against this course? Audrey's professional demeanor cracked slightly, revealing genuine worry. Because Bradley's exhibition of controlled sociopathic tendencies has progressed from professional application to personal fixation. This isn't strategic anymore, it's obsessive. And it now involves potential collateral damage I can't ignore. She removed another document, a comprehensive profile of Zoe and Noah Blackwood, including their academic schedules, extracurricular activities, and college application targets. Grant's blood ran cold. He's monitoring my children? Not directly. Audrey clarified quickly. This information was compiled from public sources and social media. But the fact that he's expanded his focus beyond you personally to include your children cross a line for me. Bradley claims he's simply identifying pressure points, but this represents a dangerous escalation. Grant studied Audrey more carefully, seeking understanding of her motivation. Why warn me? Family loyalty typically prevails in these situations. Audrey met his gaze directly. My brother and I share DNA and little else, Mr. Blackwood. I've maintained minimal contact with him for years, precisely because I recognized the manipulative patterns our mother also exhibited. When he suddenly re-engaged with me, seeking professional advice, I knew something significant had occurred. She hesitated before continuing. I also have teenage children. The thought of someone targeting them, even indirectly, as leverage against me is unconscionable. I couldn't remain silent once I saw that document. Grant believed her, not just because her concerns seemed genuine, but because the detailed information she provided aligned with what he knew of Bradley's approach to conflicts. Kent had indeed honored their literal agreement by taking no direct action against Grant, while simultaneously laying groundwork for indirect attacks through carefully constructed proxies. What exactly do you believe Bradley intends? Grant asked. Short term, he wants to create business challenges for Meridian, steering clients to competitors, disrupting project timelines, generating regulatory scrutiny. Long term, he aims to undermine your professional reputation through a series of seemingly unrelated failures that collectively suggest incompetence. And my children? They represent potential leverage if you recognize and counter his business strategies. Information about their college applications suggests he's considering actions that might impact their academic opportunities, anonymous communications to admissions offices, perhaps, or disruption of recommendation processes. The calculated malice of this approach, targeting not just Grant but his children's futures, triggered a protective anger unlike anything he had experienced during Veronica's betrayal. This wasn't impulsive selfishness, but methodical vindictiveness extending to innocent parties. Thank you for this information, Grant said, his voice controlled despite his internal rage. May I ask what you expect to happen next? I expect you to protect yourself and your family using this advance warning, Audrey replied simply. And I hope you'll consider that my disclosure places me at personal risk with my brother, should he discover it. You have my word that he won't learn of this meeting from me or my associates, Grant assured her, though he may deduce it if his plans encounter unexpected resistance. Audrey nodded, gathering her remaining documents. I've made my peace with that possibility. Some principles supersede family loyalty, Mr. Blackwood. The protection of innocent young people is one of them. After she departed, Grant immediately contacted Carson Reed, sharing the new information and requesting enhanced security measures for both Meridian Architecture and the Blackwood family home. He then called Diana Morello, seeking legal options for addressing threats to his children's academic pursuits without creating public drama that might affect their college applications. Finally, he reached out to Vincent Pastor, authorizing a comprehensive security audit of all Meridian's projects and client relationships, searching for evidence of the disruptions Bradley had apparently begun implementing. These practical responses provided necessary protection, but they didn't address the fundamental issue. Bradley Kent had evolved from a professional inconvenience to an active threat targeting Grant's most vulnerable priority, his children's future. The architect's blueprint had accommodated many contingencies, but not this level of calculated malice extending beyond the original conflicting parties. This required a structural redesign, one that would neutralize the threat without compromising the ethical foundations of Grant's reconstruction effort. Late that evening, after confirming additional security measures were in place, Grant sat in his home office contemplating appropriate responses. The most straightforward approach would be leveraging the evidence from their previous confrontation. Reporting Bradley's attempted financial crimes to authorities would efficiently remove him as a threat. Yet this path carried potential complications for the twins. Legal proceedings would likely become public, possibly affecting their college application process during the critical evaluation period. Moreover, such direct retaliation might simply transform Bradley's calculated strategies into desperate ones, potentially more dangerous in their unpredictability. His deliberation was interrupted by Noah knocking on the office door, an unusual occurrence given the twins' typical respect for his workspace. "Everything okay?" Grant asked, noting his son's troubled expression. "Not sure," Noah admitted, sitting across from Grant's desk. "I got a weird email about my MIT application, supposedly from the engineering department, asking for additional materials outside the normal submission process." Grant maintained a neutral expression despite his internal alarm. "What kind of materials?" "They requested a video explaining a past project failure and how I addressed it, said it was part of a new character assessment component." Noah frowned, but the phrasing felt off, and when I checked the sender's address, it was from MIT-engineering-admissions.org, not the actual MIT.edu domain. Grant felt simultaneous dread and pride. Dread at the confirmation of Bradley's actions beginning exactly as Audrey had warned, pride in his son's perceptiveness about the deception. "You were right to be suspicious," Grant said carefully. "That's definitely not legitimate communication from MIT. Did you respond or click any links?" "No, but I forwarded it to my college counselor asking if it was legitimate. She immediately called me, saying it's a sophisticated scam and I should delete it." Grant nodded, relieved by this outcome, but concerned about the timing. Mere hours after learning of Bradley's plans, the first direct action had already occurred. That was exactly the right response. Did Zoe receive anything similar? Not yet, but I warned her to be extra careful with emails about applications. After Noah returned to his homework, Grant sent discreet messages to both teens' college counselors, alerting them to potential targeted interference without providing specific details about its source. He then contacted Reed again, forwarding the fraudulent email for forensic analysis and potential tracing. The following morning brought another tremor when Vincent Pastor called with concerning news. "We've identified 3 instances of potential client tampering," the financial advisor reported, "all involving projects in preliminary discussion phases. Someone has been providing misleading information about Meridian's capacity and pricing structure to potential clients." This aligned perfectly with Bradley's documented strategy for competitive disruption that Audrey had revealed. Grant authorized immediate outreach to the affected clients, providing correct information and enhanced proposals that address the misrepresentations without directly alleging interference. That afternoon, Grant received an unexpected call from Howard Pearson, Luminary CEO. "Grant, there's a situation involving Bradley Kent I thought you should know about directly, given your history." "What kind of situation?" Grant asked cautiously. "Kent has been developing a side business providing reputation management services to luxury hotels and resorts, direct competitors to Luminary properties. We've discovered he's been using proprietary Luminary data to inform his consulting, a clear violation of his employment contract." This explained how Bradley was financing his campaign against Grant, creating an independent income stream that would sustain him if his position at Luminary became compromised. "I'm sorry to hear that," Grant responded neutrally. "That must create significant challenges for your organization." "Indeed, we're initiating termination proceedings based on contract violation and corporate espionage. Given your prior concerns about Kent's professional conduct, I wanted to provide this information personally rather than having you learn about it through industry channels." After the call ended, Grant considered this development carefully. Bradley's termination would remove his access to Luminary's resources, but might also eliminate remaining constraints on his behavior. A man with nothing left to lose often became unpredictable, potentially dangerous. That evening, as Grant reviewed enhanced security protocols with the twins, explaining them as standard precautions following recent cases of identity theft targeting college applicants, his phone rang with a blocked number. "Enjoying your Pyrrhic victory, Blackwood?" Bradley's voice was tightly controlled, but edged with rage. "Impressive maneuvering with Pearson. I underestimated your corporate reach. I had nothing to do with Luminary's discovery of your contract violations," Grant replied truthfully. "Your own actions created those consequences." Bradley laughed bitterly. "A convenient coincidence, then, that Pearson received an anonymous tip about my consulting work immediately after you learned of my plans." This confirmed Grant's suspicion that Audrey had taken additional actions beyond warning him, likely contacting Pearson herself to neutralize her brother's financial foundation for further attacks. "Whatever you believe, Kent, this path leads nowhere productive. Your grievance is with me, not my children. Leave them out of your vendetta. Your precious architect's principles," Bradley sneered, "always the moral high ground while you systematically destroy opponents. Did your children know their father was capable of such calculated destruction before watching you dismantle their mother's life?" "My children understand the difference between consequences and destruction," Grant countered evenly. "Veronica faces consequences proportional to her choices, as do you. Neither of you has been destroyed, merely held accountable." "Accountability," Bradley repeated mockingly. "A convenient concept for those with power to impose their version of justice. Let's see how you enjoy experiencing the other perspective." The call ended abruptly, leaving Grant with the certainty that Bradley's campaign was entering a more dangerous phase, one driven by personal vengeance rather than calculated strategy. The structural threat to his family's reconstruction had intensified beyond his original blueprint's contingency plans. Grant Blackwood, master of architectural integrity, now faced his most challenging redesign, creating a defensive structure that would protect his family while maintaining the ethical foundation upon which he had built his life and career. The tremors threatening his carefully reconstructed world would require not just reinforcement, but fundamental reevaluation of how to address an adversary unconstrained by professional consequences or moral considerations. The architect prepared to draft a new blueprint, one designed not just for stability, but for neutralizing persistent threats without compromising the life he was building from the ruins of betrayal. Chapter 9. Masterful Resolution. Bradley Kent's termination from Luminary Hotels became industry knowledge within days, accompanied by rumors of corporate espionage and breach of contract. Grant monitored these developments with careful attention, recognizing that Bradley's professional disgrace might either diminish his capacity for causing harm or intensify his determination to extract revenge. The answer came swiftly. 3 days after Bradley's dismissal, Zoe received college application interference similar to Noah's, a fraudulent communication supposedly from Stanford's biochemistry department requesting personal information through non-official channels. Unlike Noah's experience, this attempt was sophisticated enough to nearly succeed, stopped only by Zoe's last-minute decision to verify the request with her counselor. Simultaneously, Meridian Architecture experienced a coordinated series of challenges. A critical project server suffered a targeted cyber attack. 3 major clients received anonymous packages containing manipulated financial projections suggesting Meridian's instability, and Grant's personal reputation became the subject of whisper campaigns suggesting ethical lapses in his business practices. These attacks, while concerning, were manageable through established professional channels. What pushed Grant toward decisive action was a more personal violation. Both twins discovered their social media accounts had been compromised, with private messages and photographs downloaded by unknown parties. While no explicit threat accompanied these breaches, the implied message was clear. Bradley had access to personal aspects of the twins' lives and was willing to target them directly. This crossed a line Grant could not tolerate. Threatening children's sense of safety and privacy to punish their parent represented unconscionable cruelty. After ensuring immediate security measures for the twins' digital presence and emotional well-being, Grant initiated his comprehensive response, a three-part strategy designed to permanently neutralize Bradley's capacity for causing further harm. The first component addressed Bradley's current campaign. Grant engaged a specialized cybersecurity firm to trace the digital attacks, documenting their origins and methodologies. Simultaneously, Carson Reed expanded his investigation to identify any individuals Bradley had enlisted as proxies for his revenge efforts. Within days, this combined approach yielded critical information. Bradley was operating through a network of contracted digital specialists coordinated by Felix Navarro, the same security consultant he had previously engaged. Moreover, financial traces revealed Bradley had established an offshore account funding these activities, an account containing significantly more than his legitimate earnings could justify. The second component of Grant's strategy targeted Bradley's future capabilities. Diana Morello used the documented evidence of targeted harassment to secure temporary restraining orders protecting both twins and initiated legal proceedings for permanent protection orders. Concurrently, Vincent Pastor engaged financial forensic specialists to analyze Bradley's suspicious offshore funding, discovering connections to his unauthorized consulting activities for Luminary's competitors. These parallel efforts established a legal framework documenting Bradley's pattern of malicious actions while simultaneously investigating his financial foundation for those activities. The third and most crucial component involved Grant personally. Rather than continuing reactive defenses, he decided to address the threat directly through a carefully structured confrontation. On a rainy October morning, Grant arrived at Bradley's recently acquired luxury apartment building in Boston's Seaport District. Rather than requesting direct access, he positioned himself in the resident lounge with clear visibility of all elevators and exits and sent a simple text message. "We need to discuss acceptable resolution. Resident lounge, your building." Now, 20 minutes later, Bradley emerged from the elevator, his appearance noticeably altered since their last encounter. His designer wardrobe had been replaced by casual athleisure, where his carefully maintained hairstyle grown out haphazardly. Most striking was the barely concealed rage in his expression as he approached Grant's position. "Admiring your handiwork," Bradley asked bitterly, dropping into the seat across from Grant. The disgraced executive reduced to hiding in his apartment while liquidating assets to cover legal expenses. "I'm observing the consequences of your choices," Grant corrected, "none of which were necessary or inevitable." Bradley laughed sharply. "Spare me the moral lecture. You systematically dismantled my career and reputation." "Your actions dismantled your career," Grant countered. "I simply ensured my family was protected from those actions." Grant removed a document folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table between them. "This contains evidence of every attack you've initiated, digital, professional, and personal. It documents your offshore accounts funding these activities, your coordination with Navarro and others to execute them, and a specific targeting of my children." Bradley's expression remained defiant, though his eyes revealed calculation as he assessed this revelation. "Also documented," Grant continued, "are financial transactions between your offshore account and competitors of Luminary Hotels, corresponding precisely with proprietary information transfers from Luminary secure servers. Transactions that significantly exceed standard consulting fees." For the first time, genuine alarm registered in Bradley's expression. "You can't prove any connection between those transactions and information transfers. The cybersecurity specialists who traced your digital attacks against my firm have confirmed the same encryption signatures appear in both those attacks and the Luminary data transfers. Same technical source, same timing, same beneficiary. The evidence is comprehensive." Grant leaned forward slightly. "This documentation has been prepared in 3 identical sets. One remains secure in my attorney's office. One has been provided to federal authorities investigating corporate espionage. The third is here before you." Bradley stared at the folder, his calculated confidence evaporating. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted: complete and permanent cessation of all actions against my family and business, direct or indirect. Grant placed a second document beside the evidence folder. This is a binding agreement stipulating exactly that. It requires your immediate termination of all ongoing campaigns, dissolution of relationships with any individuals engaged for such purposes, and permanent geographical relocation at least 500 miles from Boston. You're forcing me out of the city? Bradley asked incredulously. I'm offering an alternative to federal prosecution for corporate espionage, financial crimes, harassment, and computer fraud, Grant corrected. Crimes with potential sentences exceeding 15 years and financial penalties that would eliminate your remaining assets. Bradley's expression cycled through rage, calculation, and finally reluctant recognition of his position. And if I sign, the evidence package before you becomes your property. My attorney retains her copy under privilege, contingent upon your ongoing compliance. The federal authorities proceed with their investigation into corporate espionage without my active cooperation or additional evidence provision. Why offer any alternative? Bradley asked suspiciously. You could simply allow the federal case to proceed. Grant had anticipated this question. Because my priority remains my children's well-being. A public federal case involving targeted harassment would affect their college application process and emotional recovery. I'm offering this alternative solely for their benefit, not yours. Bradley studied Grant with a mixture of resentment and grudging respect. You really do consider every angle, don't you? The perfect strategic architect. I consider what matters, Grant corrected. My children's security matters. Your fate matters only to the extent it affects them. After several moments of tense silence, Bradley reached for the agreement. I'll need to review the terms. They're non-negotiable, Grant stated flatly. The agreement requires immediate signature and implementation, including cessation of all current activities against my family and a relocation plan filed within 72 hours. Bradley's jaw tightened. And how do you verify my compliance? The same specialists who documented your previous activities will monitor for continuation or resumption. Any violation immediately triggers release of the complete evidence package to federal prosecutors. The defeated calculation in Bradley's expression confirmed Grant's assessment. Despite his rage and resentment, Kent recognized an unwinnable position. His professional disgrace could potentially be rebuilt elsewhere, but federal conviction would permanently destroy any future prospects. After another tense moment, Bradley signed the agreement. You've won, Blackwood. Completely and utterly. This isn't about winning, Grant replied, collecting the signed document. It's about ending unnecessary conflict and protecting what matters. As Grant prepared to leave, Bradley offered one final bitter observation. You know what's truly ironic? If Veronica had married someone like me instead of you, someone who understood her actual nature rather than projecting idealized expectations onto her, none of this would have happened. We're alike, she and I. We take what we want without apology. Grant considered this assessment thoughtfully. You may be right about your similarities, but you're wrong about my understanding of Veronica. I recognized her nature years ago, her prioritization of personal desires over commitments, her transactional approach to relationships. I simply chose to focus on her better qualities and our shared goals for our children. Then why act so shocked by her betrayal? Bradley challenged. I wasn't shocked by the affair, Grant clarified. I was appalled by her willingness to sacrifice our children's future for momentary pleasure. That crossed a line I hadn't believed even she would transgress. With that final distinction established, Grant departed, leaving Bradley Kent with the documentation of his own destructive choices and a narrowly available path toward potential future reconstruction. In the weeks that followed, the attacks against the Blackwood family and Meridian architecture ceased completely. Surveillance confirmed Bradley had terminated relationships with his digital contractors and begun liquidating his Boston assets in preparation for relocation. The twins' college application processes proceeded without further interference, their compromised accounts secured with enhanced protection. By Thanksgiving, the family had achieved a new equilibrium. Zoe and Noah had received early acceptance letters from their first-choice schools, MIT and Stanford respectively. Meridian Architecture's reputation had emerged from the whisper campaigns stronger than before, with clients impressed by the firm's resilience and integrity during challenging circumstances. Even Veronica had evolved in unexpected ways. Her scheduled video calls with the twins showed genuine interest in their achievements, and her communications with Grant regarding practical co-parenting matters reflected newfound respect for boundaries and responsibilities. Whether this represented authentic growth or simply pragmatic adaptation remained unclear, but the effect on family functioning was undeniably positive. On the evening before Thanksgiving, as Grant prepared the kitchen for the following day's meal, the twins had insisted on maintaining their traditional family celebration despite their mother's absence. Olivia called with news about their joint project in Hartford. The Cultural Center design won the Urban Sustainability Award, she reported with evident satisfaction. The committee specifically praised our integration of community needs with environmental responsibility. That's excellent news, Grant replied, genuinely pleased by this professional recognition of their collaborative vision. I've been thinking, Olivia continued, about expanding our joint venture beyond individual projects to a more comprehensive partnership. There's potential for significant impact if we formalize the collaboration. Professional partnership? Grant clarified. Initially, Olivia acknowledged, with potential for expanding into other domains as appropriate. The deliberate phrasing made Grant smile. Olivia's approach to personal matters mirrored her architectural philosophy. Thoughtful foundation work preceding visible structures, with careful attention to long-term integrity rather than immediate appearance. I'd be interested in exploring that potential, Grant replied. Perhaps during your visit next week? Their conversation continued, discussing both professional and personal possibilities with the same thoughtful consideration they applied to architectural challenges. Unlike his relationship with Veronica, which had begun with romantic intensity but lacked structural integrity, this connection was being built on mutual respect, shared values, and clear-eyed understanding of each other's actual nature rather than idealized projections. After ending the call, Grant stood at the kitchen window overlooking the garden he and the twins had redesigned together over the summer. The space had been transformed from Veronica's formal entertaining area to a functional combination of recreational space and productive garden beds, a physical manifestation of their family's evolution from appearance-focused to substance-centered. The twins entered the kitchen, initiating their traditional pie preparation for the following day's meal. As they worked together with practiced coordination, Grant observed how their individual strengths complemented each other. Noah's precision with measurements balancing Zoe's intuitive adjustments to recipes. Dad, Noah said as they finished the first pie, Zoe and I were talking about winter break plans. We'd like to invite Olivia to join our skiing trip, if that's not too weird. Not weird at all, Grant replied, touched by their acceptance of this new relationship in his life. But you should know it might make it more than just a casual work friendship if she's included in family vacations. We know, Zoe said with exaggerated patience. That's kind of the point. She's good for you, makes you laugh more. And she actually sees us as people, not extensions of you or accessories to her image. Plus, Noah added pragmatically, she knows how to ski without complaining about the cold or worrying about her hair, unlike Mom. Grant laughed at his son's blunt assessment. I'll extend the invitation and see what she says. As they continued their holiday preparations, Grant reflected on the journey from discovery of betrayal to this moment of authentic contentment. What had begun as desperate damage control had evolved into purposeful reconstruction, creating not just stability, but genuine thriving for all involved. The architect had applied his professional principles to his most personal project, identifying what truly mattered structurally, removing elements that compromised integrity, and carefully integrating new components that enhanced the overall design. The result wasn't a perfect recreation of what had been lost, but something potentially stronger, more authentic, and better aligned with his fundamental values. Grant Blackwood, who had risen from modest beginnings through disciplined work and unwavering principles, had faced his greatest challenge not in professional achievement, but in personal reconstruction after profound betrayal. The blueprint he had designed amid that crisis had evolved through implementation, accommodating unexpected variables while maintaining its core structural integrity. The masterful resolution wasn't found in revenge against those who had betrayed him, but in creating something valuable from what remained after betrayal. A family defined by authentic connection rather than appearance, professional success founded on genuine value rather than status, and personal relationships based on mutual respect rather than convenience or transaction. As the Blackwood family continued their Thanksgiving preparations, their laughter and easy interaction represented the most important architectural achievement of Grant's life. A structure built to withstand even the most devastating tremors, providing not just shelter, but a foundation for genuine flourishing in the wake of betrayal. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.